Hello again, raising awareness, mental health, suicide prevention, and encouraging anyone who's struggling in any way to speak up. I was going to do this last weekend, and then I had multiple attempts at it through the week, watched it back, didn't like it, deleted it. So I'm just going for it now. I'm going to talk, I know I've spoken about this quite a bit before. Post-traumatic stress, complex post-traumatic stress. I won't do it all in one video because they're really long, so I'll have to break it down into different videos. Should you so wish to take a gander, yeah, they'll be more in depth than they were last year, like little snippets of bits and pieces. So the first one's simply going to be what it is, who can get it, how they can get it, when they can get it, symptoms, etc. Post-traumatic stress, one-off event, essentially. So something that someone finds traumatic, there is a risk they may go on to develop post-traumatic stress. So if it's one event, that's where the diagnosis tends to come from. And complex post-traumatic stress is more than one or over a long period of time. For instance, if someone feels captive, powerless, stuck, and within that longer period of time, there might be lots of different traumatic events. So it layers up. That's it in a nutshell. I'm not going to be sharing links this time. You can go and have a Google yourselves. So, who can get it? Anyone. Anyone can get it. There's no rhyme nor reason to it. Certain people are more at risk of developing either one of those conditions than others, but it doesn't mean just because you've come from an environment or you might have another existing condition that you're going to get it. And it doesn't mean if you've not come from a particular environment and you're classed as neurotypical that you won't develop it. So some people will, some people won't. It's a bit of an unpleasant lottery, and it's just how it is. Um, as I say, certain people are more at risk. It's obvious that certain jobs can have a higher percentage of people that go on to develop this than others. But again, it doesn't mean that people will. And as I say, it's just how it is. When it develops really depends. Some people develop it at the time of the traumatic event. Some people might start experiencing symptoms a few days later. Some might be a few weeks later. Some might be a few months later, or some even years. And it may be if it's the a longer time period that in actual fact certain aspects of it had come in previously. Certainly mine, which was complex over a very long period of time, I recognised through the healing process and fully recognise now that there were certain things going on long before I even discovered what it was, or someone like me could develop it. So again, it's just a lottery, and some people won't develop it at all. You can have people involved in exactly the same situation, and someone or some people might develop post-traumatic stress, complex post-traumatic stress from it, and others won't. And again, it's just how your mind, body, and system can react to stuff or is able to process things. Some people are, and some people aren't. And that's, again, it's not nice, it's not pleasant, can't be predicted. It's just how it is, unfortunately. But there you go. These are the dice that get dealt. So I'll go through some of the symptoms now. I'm not going to name them all. I'm not going to read off a list. Most of the symptoms of the two basically are identical. There are some minor differences, and there's a couple of things with complex post-traumatic stress. I haven't written a list. I'm not going to read them off. I'll just go through some of the main ones as I remember them off the top of my head, and then in a later video I'll go through how they affected me more. So, and in no particular order, self-medicating. So drugs, alcohol are the two big ones. People who wouldn't normally do that may start to self-medicate heavily. I certainly used alcohol heavily for a while to try and cope. This was even before I knew what was going on. Some people use drugs. Some people might gamble. Some people might get into risky behaviour, so taking risks they wouldn't normally take. So driving quickly, for instance, or just generally being reckless. Some people might use drink and drugs. Some people might overeat. Certainly my diet went to the wall at times, and you might be doing all of those things, or just one of those things, or some of them, but the likelihood is that people will self-medicate, as they can do with other mental health conditions, and it's just one of many symptoms that there are. The second one is, or the second one I'm going to wait to drop in my head, is your sleep's going to be affected. So you won't be getting anywhere near the amount of sleep that you need. On top of that, there's going to be night sweats, nightmares, night terrors, night paralysis, and getting them lots of the time. Everyone gets that from time to time. In actual fact, night paralysis is normal. Your body goes through when your body goes through the stages of sleep, there is one of the stages where your body is essentially paralyzed. So it's a normal part of the sleep cycle. But when you're in this mindfuck of a situation and you wake up and you can't move, it is terrifying, because the likelihood is it's been from a nightmare or night terror. Not very nice at all. You are likely to be anxious and depressed. So anxiety and depression are two more of the things that you can get as part of these conditions. Dissociation. This is where you don't feel connected to yourself and other people, either all of the time or some of the time. All the things I'm mentioning, I've experienced. And some people report almost like an out-of-body experience some of the time. I didn't have that, but I did feel like I was in the Truman Show, which sounds a bit strange, but that's how I felt. Flashbacks, visual flashbacks, or ones I refer to as physical or emotional flashbacks. There are other types, but these are the ones that I experienced. So emotional flashbacks, and rumination as well, but emotional flashbacks is where events are just running through your head on an endless loop. And if you've got lots of them, or if you've got one of them, it doesn't matter, because until you realize what's going on, you don't have any control over it. So it's just running over and over and over and over in your head for minutes, hours. You can lose track of time because of it. People can look as if they're zoning out. Sometimes it's because of that, and sometimes they've just gone blank. They're just getting some downtime. The visual, or what I call physical flashbacks, is where you actually in front of you see things. So rather than you be reimagining stuff, as it were, you can see things in front of you that aren't there. And some people get a full-on thing where they're back where they were when this event or events happened, and for some it was partial. The three I had was partial. I'll go into that in another video. So it's kind of something's going on in front of you that's from another time, but where you are is where you are currently. Very weird, quite frightening. You might be emotionally dysregulated, so intense feelings of fear, anger, sadness, shame, guilt, basically pretty much any negative emotion, bitterness, resentment might be in there, all sorts of stuff. You'll feel them very intensely. Again, not everyone gets all of them, but you do feel them very intensely. Off the back of that, you might be more argumentative than you normally would be. Some people might be getting into fights. Some of that might be because they're drinking more or whatever. But you generally become just, you don't want to be around yourself, and it's not always very nice to be around you, I'm afraid. So yeah, arguments. What else? Yeah, feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness. You're stuck. You just feel stuck. Don't feel that there's anywhere to go, anything to do, and that's perhaps one of the most dangerous ones. Layered up with everything else, because you can then move into having suicidal thoughts, which again I experienced a lot of. They just pop in. You don't, or I certainly didn't necessarily think of them. The things I had just popped in and were in on and off for a very long time. Not very pleasant at all to go through. It's frightening, and it's just, yeah, not very nice. Neurogenic tremors. People who watched the videos last year will have seen me exhibiting those in a big way. I had those on and off for years, and when this stuff came back in, they were fairly debilitating, actually. Not to the extent I couldn't do things, but it made, for instance, picking up a cup of coffee extremely difficult, because you're like this. Your voice is affected because you're shaking so much. Not great. Tired a lot of the time because of the lack of sleep. You might not want to go to sleep. I didn't, because I was scared of the nightmares, etc. So he's tired a lot of the time. Concentrating is excessively difficult because you're tired, and also because you're hypervigilant, where you're looking out for threat coming from anywhere and everywhere all of the time. That's exhausting. Being tired is exhausting. And while your body or your threat system is looking out for threats, it's not really interested on what task you need to do next at work or at home, because it's the system is in, essentially it's fight or flight, freeze form. It's essentially a there to keep you alive. It's life or death. That part of the body, the amygdala, it doesn't recognize that it's not a life or death situation. It might be, or it might have been, but it doesn't recognize when all this stuff is going on and you're away from the situation, that it's not actually life or death, but that is how it will respond and dump all these chemicals and hormones into you. So yeah, very exhausting. Again, not very nice. You're jittery, you're on edge, you're jumpy. You might get mistrustful of people. I experienced that to a degree. People that I had no reason to be mistrustful of, I backed away from some people for no particular reason. So that's just some of the things, a very brief one. As I say, longer than last year. There will be a few more coming up in this before I move on to other things and link back to things. One more. I did mention overeating, didn't I? Well, I'm going to mention that again, because that was a huge one of mine at times. So I put on a lot of weight. But yeah, so I'll come back to doing more of these in my own weird way. I hope everyone's well. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I will see you soon. See you later.